All right, everybody. I want to welcome you to our webinar for this month. It's about Social Security. That's a topic I think that everyone, at least who is nearing retirement or even in some cases in retirement, is always very interested in. So I think we have a lot to cover today, and I think it will be very interesting. Just a couple of housekeeping notes before we get started. This webinar is being recorded. So if for whatever reason you want to share it with a friend or you missed something, we will have it in a recorded fashion. It will take a few days for it to go through our compliance department and get approved, but we will make this available after the fact. Also wanted to let you know, and I'll save the long story. My background today, I'm actually at the University of Missouri Student Center. So if you do see kids walking through or maybe you hear some loud noises, that probably means the class is letting out. So hopefully that won't be too disruptive to us today. And so far, it seems like they have good Wi-Fi. So I think we're going to be in great shape. One of the things I always like to do before I start these webinars is to just let everybody know who Cornerstone is, because there's a very good chance that you may not know anything about Cornerstone. And that being said, Cornerstone is a registered investment advisor. We happen to be based in St. Louis, Missouri. However, we have advisors in 16 states and a total of about 124 financial advisors. Some of the stats you see on the screen are a little out of date, that assets under management. So this is all client assets from the client accounts that our advisors manage. That's actually close to 7 billion as of just a couple of days ago. And those advisors have joined us from 17 different firms, and they chose a path to independence, and Cornerstone has helped them do that. But one of the reasons why you may not know who Cornerstone is because your advisor chooses to brand as something else, which is something we entirely support. So you see some of the names on the screen there. You see Symmetry Financial Advisors, you see LifeMap Wealth Management, you see Triada Advisors, Steamboat Financial, Ginfinity. These are all advisors who have chosen to brand as their own and build that brand, but at the same time, they want some of the benefits of plugging in with a larger organization. And one of those organizations that they choose to plug in with, and you probably do know who this is, but LPL Financial is our broker dealer. And also serves as, in some cases, as a registered investment advisor to our financial advisors practices. But LPL Financial is the largest independent broker dealer in the industry. They have over 21,000 financial advisors across the country, over $1 trillion in assets under management, and 0 proprietary products. So unlike some other firms that might have some in-house products that are a lot more profitable for them, LPL has really taken the approach that they want true independence and really focus on allowing the advisor to really choose what is best for their advisors to use for their clients. Well, how does that all fit together for you? Well, first of all, your advisor has built their own independent financial advisory practice because they see those benefits of independence. They've chosen to be with LPL Financial because of the scale that they really bring to the table, but they've also decided to partner with Cornerstone because of what we can do and how we can help their practice. And really, this webinar is a great example of that. Your advisors could absolutely choose to plan these things on their own, but when they do that, it takes time away from you and working with your accounts. So in many cases, we try to take some of that heavy lifting off of their plate and allow them to plug into some of our support structure and scale, which ultimately yields time back to you and for them to spend on your accounts. So again, we certainly try to continue this partnership and provide value to our advisors, and hopefully you get a lot out of this webinar today. Now, something that we are doing, if you've been on our webinars in the past, we did have different options for Q&A. Unfortunately, we do have to do things a little bit differently, and again, it's primarily for compliance reasons. If you would like to ask a question of Grace when she finishes her presentation, you need to email cornerstonewm@lpl.com. I will be viewing that inbox, and I'll relay those questions back to Grace, and we'll get your questions answered. If for whatever reason we don't get to your question, be sure to ask your financial advisor, and we'll absolutely be sure to get the answer for you from Grace after the fact. So again, just write that down. We will mention it a couple of times when it's time for Q&A. But again, cornerstonewm@lpl.com is how you will ask questions. Now, I am going to introduce a friend of mine to introduce Grace. Brian Schwartz and I have known each other for well over 20 years. I would say for a good chunk of our careers, we were friendly competitors. We were calling on the same financial advisors and really were covering the same territory for about that entire time. But I consider Brian to be a friend, definitely a great supporter of Cornerstone and our advisors that we have, and just has been a fantastic resource for us over the years. And we're very happy that he's brought this presentation to us for our clients today. So Brian, let me turn things over to you and take it away.
Well, Bill, thank you very much for that kind introduction. And thank you all, Cornerstone clients, for joining us this afternoon. We really do appreciate your time. As Bill had mentioned, I'm Brian Schwartz. I'm the Senior Regional Consultant with Putnam Investments. I've been in the business since 1993. I've been in St. Louis since 1997. And I work with financial advisors from Peoria through Kansas City. And again, we really appreciate your time today. Before I turn it over to Grace, just a little bit about Putnam. Putnam is one of the oldest investment management firms in the United States. We're based in Boston. We manage about $200 billion, almost evenly split between fixed income or bonds and equities or stocks. In addition to that, we are one of the best performing investment firms in the United States. So we're very proud of the fact that Barron's ranked Putnam out of the 49 largest investment management firms, the only firm that was in the top 10 in overall fund family performance over the 10-year, the 3-year, and the 1-year period of time over the most recent study that they did about a month ago. In addition to having great performance, we do support financial advisors and their clients, I believe, as well as anybody in the industry, and that's where Grace comes in. Grace is a senior wealth management specialist, originally from the Chicago area. I went to Boston College. She is a CFP and has been in the industry and been with Putnam now for around 7 years. So Grace, we're happy to have you. Grace is going to go through a presentation, Social Security, 5 things you need to know. And as Bill had mentioned, please think of any questions you have during the presentation, and we can address those at the end. So Grace, thank you so much for your time. Very glad that you're with us.
Thanks, Brian. And happy Wednesday, everyone. And thank you for joining us today. And as Brian mentioned, my name is Grace Bumpus, and I'm a wealth management specialist at Putnam Investments. And my team and I work closely with advisors across the country and their clients like you all on tax planning strategies, estate planning techniques, asset protection, but we can also take a deep dive when it comes to education on retirement planning, which includes Medicare and our main focus today, which is Social Security. So investors like yourselves approaching retirement, or as Bill mentioned, maybe in retirement, have real concerns on generating income in retirement that is sufficient and sustainable over potentially and hopefully many years. And Social Security is a critical component of a comprehensive income plan in retirement. Now, unfortunately, many Americans have a poor understanding of Social Security and often make suboptimal choices when electing benefits. So during our session today, we'll examine some key risks in retirement and discuss how different ways to address these decisions. And I'm laughing too, looking at the title today to myself. When it comes to 5 things you need to know, I'm going to be talking a lot more than just on 5 key areas. But again, with the current situation today, hopefully it will be a good update for you all. And not just that, but with the unknowns of the stock market and Social Security payments rising to a maximum benefit of a little over $4,500 in 2023, even wealthy individuals are starting to pay much closer attention to Social Security. That's what we've been hearing from a lot of advisors. So simply put, rising benefits give investors more options when creating an optimal retirement funding strategy. So I'll spend the next 30 minutes or so going through the following topics. And then, as Bill mentioned, we will have time for Q&A. So if there is anything I cannot answer today as well, I'll follow up with you after I consult with my team. And another thing too, my goal is to provide background on Social Security and a high level, how to navigate the system. And with that being said, the right way to tackle Social Security is truly a case-by-case basis. So every person's scenario is different. So definitely consult with your financial advisor for your custom approach. Now, first, we'll be sharing a few quick facts on Social Security. We'll also highlight risks such as longevity and point out how Social Security can actually help with that. And then lastly, we'll explore the fundamentals of the Social Security retirement system and highlight those 5 key important aspects people face when in retirement and that they should be aware of. So first, here are a few quick statistics that highlight the breadth and importance of the Social Security system. Almost 70 million Americans receive Social Security benefits, totaling roughly $1 trillion in benefits annually. And that average monthly retirement benefit is a little over $1,500. And for over 60% of elderly beneficiaries, Social Security provides the majority of their cash income. Now, the recently released 2023 Social Security Trustees Report that actually projects that the trust fund will be able to pay scheduled benefits on a timely basis until 2034, when the trust fund is depleted. Now, this is 1 year earlier than the projection from the 2022 report, something to note. And beginning in 2035, payments will be funded solely from current payroll tax revenues, and benefit amounts will decline by roughly 20%. So this is very interesting. I know just in the last few months, we've been getting more questions than usual about Social Security due to that report coming out. So with these discussions in Washington heating up around raising the debt ceiling limit and the pace of government spending, the future of Social Security has also been part of that conversation. And just considering the recent federal budget outlook and a recent post that we actually made at Putnam on the breakdown of government spending, we'll take a look at what the administration and lawmakers from both sides of the aisle have taken as a position that changes when it comes to Social Security. Even though some are saying it's off limits, the program definitely faces funding issues. Now, for some quick background and hopefully to ease some of your concerns here, and for some background just in general, in 1983, Social Security did face a similar crisis, which prompted Congress to pass budget legislation to reform the program. So some of the changes included partial taxation of benefits and an increase in the retirement age. So following the passage of the law, program trustees projected solvency of the trust fund until 2057. Now, while their forecasts around population, just the growth in general, and then longevity were fairly accurate, longer term estimates on economic activity, right? Interest rates, economic growth, inflation, and productivity growth, those did not reflect the historical record. Just as an example here, the 1983 trustees report projected that wages would increase by 1.5% annually, while in reality, they had grown by roughly half that amount. So this highlights the challenges of making long-term forecasts on the future financial health of Social Security. And while these proposals to address the long-term future take many forms, they can be divided almost into 2 approaches. So rising taxes or reducing benefits. And according to that same trustees report for this year, a payroll tax increase of 3.44% would make the program solvent for the next 75 years. And currently, the Social Security payroll tax is 12.4%, 6.2% for workers, 6.2% for their employers. And under this option, the individual portion of the payroll tax would increase to 7.92%. So we'd see a change there. Conversely, if benefits were reduced across the board by 21%, the same result could presumably be reached. So realistically, a plan to address solvency will likely include both tax increases and benefit reductions. If lawmakers wait longer to make any action, more severe steps will be needed. And I'll just list off a few potential options that they have to make changes, especially when it comes to increased taxes. So again, they can increase the payroll tax. They can increase the taxable wage base itself. They could also treat a greater percentage of benefits as taxable income. They could also apply a surtax on higher income households, or even a surtax on pass-through income from certain businesses, just to list a few. But also, the Social Security Administration, they can also address this in a few ways. So number one, they can increase the retirement age like we saw in the 80s. So there have not been any changes here since that rule, which gradually changed the full retirement age from 65 to 67. And today, anyone born in 1960 or later has a retirement age of 67. A major aspect that will be talked about is the adjustment to COLA, or the cost of living adjustment formula. So there have been calls to change the basis of the formula to incorporate a different measure of CPI, so that can make an adjustment. And just for some background too, the purpose of COLA is to ensure that there is purchasing power within Social Security and supplemental security income benefits. And so it's not eroded by inflation, right? So, or keeps up with inflation. And it is based on the percentage increase in the consumer price index. For the third quarter of the last year, a COLA was determined, just for, again, some background. Now, the recent cost of living adjustment, or COLA, is a considerable increase from what we've been seeing, especially from the years when we didn't have any meaningful increases because inflation adjustments were just so low. In these inflationary environments that we're in, we need to see some form of step up. So actually last October, there was the announcement by the Social Security Administration that there was going to be an 8.7% COLA increase. And it's the biggest increase since 1981, when COLA hit 11.2%. And Social Security benefits increasing significantly give investors more options when it comes to deciding what assets to tap to first to maximize and extend the longevity of a retirement portfolio. And for those of you who have not yet started to collect Social Security, you still will benefit from this year's increase as an example. So not only does your Social Security benefit get the COLA increase, but you can also increase your benefit by delaying your start date, which I bet you've all heard about. So every year that you delay past your retirement age, you get an 8% increase in your benefit up until the age of 70. Another way to address this is just increasing the wage base. So there have been proposals to adjust the wage base to cover 90% of total wages of today's workers, and currently the wage base covers 84%. And lastly here, there have been several proposals that would reduce benefits for those with higher income levels too. And I think depending what administration we have when this is addressed, that can make a huge impact as well. Now, what you're seeing on the slide here are 5 key risks in retirement and how Social Security can actually help mitigate those risks. So number one, longevity. So Social Security provides an income stream a retiree or spouse cannot outlive, right? Whether it's reduced amount or not, it will outlive you in a sense. Then when it comes to inflation, as I mentioned earlier, benefits are typically adjusted on an annual basis to account for the cost of living increases. When it comes to markets, benefits are not affected by volatility in markets, right? So those of you who are risk averse out there, especially the older you get, that's something good to note about your Social Security benefits. And then when it comes to taxes, everyone's favorite topic. So for retirees at lower income levels, Social Security benefits may be tax-free, right? So even for the highest income households, 15% of benefits will be tax-free, meaning that the maximum of 85% of benefits are potentially taxable. And lastly, income here. Social Security provides a regular guaranteed stream of income, and this is especially important for retirees who do not have pensions, right? So some regularity there. Now let's review some of the fundamentals of Social Security. I would also recommend checking out SSA.gov or My SSA. It's a great resource. If you haven't already created an account, I would definitely look into doing that. There's no age range in doing so. And just before reviewing the fundamentals of Social Security, I do want to share that all of your personal information for Social Security, again, can be found on myssa.gov. And once you register, you can see your own estimates and make sure that your annual income looks accurate. And I actually created my account a year ago, and it's just a good thing to keep an eye on. And Social Security, the website itself can be a very handy resource, but this is really where having an advisor comes in as well, because they won't provide advice for when to claim or how to claim. They'll just help you claim, right? So it is definitely a good resource to be aware of. And even just the search bar can help you target exactly what you're looking for. And most of the data I'll share here will be featured on the website. And of course, we can share these slides with you after as well. And it looks like there will be a recording too. Now we can get into some of the rules here, as you can see, for Social Security. So number one, eligibility. So when you work and pay Social Security taxes, you earn credits towards Social Security benefits. And the number of credits you need to get retirement benefits depends on when you were born. So for individuals who were born in 1929 or later, you need 40 credits. So that really means 10 years of work. Now, when it comes to individual contributions, through the Social Security payroll tax, which is currently 6.2%, workers fund Social Security. And I'll note that employers also pay the same amount into the Social Security system, which I mentioned earlier. And payroll contributions end once an employee reaches the maximum compensation subject to Social Security taxes, which for 2023 is a little over $160,000. So I think that's important to be aware of when it comes to that income threshold. Now, benefits, the benefits themselves, they're based on your lifetime earnings. So your actual earnings are adjusted or indexed to account for changes in average wages since the year the earnings were actually received. So Social Security calculates your average index monthly earnings, or AIM, during the 35 years in which you earned the most. So we apply a formula to these earnings and arrive at your basic benefit or your primary insurance amount, also called PIA. Something else to note too when it comes to spousal benefits. So even if your spouse or you have never worked under Social Security or paid into Social Security through that tax, your spouse may be able to get benefits, or you may be able to get benefits once you are at 62 years of age and you're receiving or eligible for retirement benefits yourself, right? So a spouse receives 1/2 of the retired worker's full benefit unless the spouse begins collecting before their full retirement age, which I'll touch on in a few slides. So if the spouse begins collecting benefits before their full retirement age, the amount of the spouse's benefit is reduced by a percentage based on the number of months before they would have reached their full retirement age. Additionally, there are survivor benefits as well, so not just spousal, but survivor. Your widow or widower can receive reduced benefits as early as age 60. Full benefits are at full retirement age or older, or benefits as early as age 50, actually, if he or she is disabled and their disability started before or within 7 years of the death of the worker. Now, let's take a look at full retirement age, or FRA. Some will also refer this to as normal retirement age, or NRA. So Social Security marks a milestone actually last year. So for the first time, people who become eligible for retirement benefits will have a full retirement age of 67. So the FRA is the point at which your client, you as individuals, you can claim 100% of your earned benefits. So Congress approved changes to Social Security in 1983 that lifted that age, as I mentioned earlier. And for example, the full retirement age for someone born in 1957 is 66 and 6 months, and the earliest claiming age is 62. And for anyone born in 1960 or later, this is what I want to highlight, that full retirement age is 67. And when it comes to early retirement and when to claim, you can start Social Security as early as age 62 or as late as age 70. Your monthly benefit amount will be different depending on the age you start receiving it. So if you choose to start your benefits early, they will be reduced based on the number of months you receive benefits before your full retirement age. Now, for example, which is also listed on the slide, someone retiring at age 62 today will see a 25% reduction in their benefits. Additionally, you could see a change in your benefit amount if you work after you start receiving benefits. Some of your benefits may be withheld if you have excess earnings. And I'll note that that excess or earnings refers to wages from a job, not other income such as investment income or pension income. Now this middle section here, full retirement age. So at full retirement age, the earnings limit no longer applies regardless of your wages. So no Social Security benefits will be withheld if you're working and you've reached your FRA. Also, after your full retirement age, you can receive a lump sum payment of no more than 6 months of benefits. For example, let's assume you file for Social Security benefits once you reach age 67. You have the option of receiving 6 months of benefits in a lump sum, and future benefits will be applied based on a retirement age of 66 and a half. So that's how it works. If you do file 3 months after you turn age 66 and want a lump sum payment, you can receive a lump sum payment of 3 months. So definitely something worth talking about with your advisor. Also, if you originally filed for early benefits prior to your full retirement amount, at your FRA, you can voluntarily suspend benefits as well. So once you restart benefits as late as age 70, your monthly benefits will be higher depending on how long you voluntarily suspended. So there are options out there. And it is important to note that if you suspend benefits, any spousal benefits being paid will also be suspended. Now, we've all heard that saying, it pays to delay. It really depends on your circumstance, but retirees do have the option of delaying Social Security retirement benefits past their full retirement age and receive an 8% raise for each year. And they'll also get credit for any COLA changes or increases as well. So this may be a good strategy to hedge the risk of longevity risk. And I'll also note that these delayed retirement credits are only applicable to the worker's own benefit, not spousal or survivor benefits. Those are really based off of the full retirement age. So there's no gain from delaying spousal or survivor benefits past their full retirement age. Now, on that topic, spousal benefits are an important component of Social Security, and in some people's circumstances, it's the most important. And even if you have never worked under Social Security, you may be able to get spouse's retirement benefits if you are at least 62 years of age and your spouse has to start claiming as well, or at least be on disability benefits. So the earning spouse must file for benefits before the non-earner can claim, and you must be married for at least 1 year. And the spousal benefit can be as much as 1/2 of the actual worker's PIA, or primary insurance amount, depending on the spouse's age at retirement. So if the spouse begins receiving benefits before their FRA, the spouse will receive a reduced benefit based off of that. Now, if a spouse is eligible for a retirement benefit based on their own earnings, and if the benefit is higher than the spousal benefit, then Social Security pays that retirement benefit. So pretty much they'll give you the option, meaning you can choose the higher amount. So Social Security pays that spousal benefit depending on which one's higher. And these benefits are not available until the working spouse files, as I mentioned, because that will trigger the spousal benefit. And I'll just give an example here. If a wife begins spousal benefits before her full retirement age, then those benefits will be reduced. But if a wife wants to wait until full retirement age to begin spousal benefits, the amount will be equal to 50% of what the husband would have earned and was eligible for to receive at his full retirement age, just as an example. And what you can see on the screen here too is a walkthrough. So for some people, especially those who have a spouse with richer Social Security benefits, tapping into their own lesser benefit might make sense on the earlier side, especially if they can claim that as a survivor. So something to keep in mind here. We'll shift our focus now to those 5 key things to be aware of. So number one of the biggest mistakes retirees make is deciding to begin Social Security benefits too soon. In fact, almost 70% begin benefits before reaching their full retirement age. And since statistics suggest you have a 50% chance of living past life expectancy, there's clearly a big problem here. And of course, retirees in poor health, they may want to consider beginning benefits early. But the fact is that many people simply underestimate their life expectancy, which isn't the worst issue, right? But in this case, I guess it could be. So claiming Social Security early locks you into a lower monthly benefit amount for the rest of your life. Of course, there are ways to suspend, as we mentioned. There are a few loopholes, if you will, but in most instances, you are locked into a lower amount. So for people still working, the earnings limit may also apply. I already mentioned this earlier, but this really means that if you have earnings above that certain limit, for each $2 in earnings in excess, you'll lose $1 of Social Security benefits. Also, if you're still working and your income is higher, you'll also be taxed likely. Now, if you are under full retirement age for the entire year, Social Security does deduct $1 from your benefit payments for every $2 you earn above that limit. And for 2023, that limit is a little over $21,000. So something to note, it's a little bit of a difference for the actual year that you would turn your full retirement age. And in most cases, once you claim benefits, you can't change your mind, right? Unless you started claiming benefits within the last 12 months, there is a way to suspend. So why should you consider delaying Social Security benefits even past your full retirement age? Your lifetime benefit amount increases, as I mentioned, by 8% every year up till age 70. And in this market environment, it's difficult to think of any other way to get a guaranteed 8% annual increase. And I like this chart here. It just shows the percentage of retirees who elect to claim Social Security benefits by age and by what age. And as you can see here, just the difference, and just looking at this bar chart here, at 62, that's the majority or the largest amount of individuals when they claim, because it's the earliest they can claim, and it's benefits, they've earned. But it's something to look into and why this is such an important conversation to have. Here's also an illustration highlighting just how valuable delaying Social Security can be. And as I mentioned on the previous slide, if an individual plans to have a long life expectancy, waiting until age 70 will get them over $1,300 more in monthly benefits. So an extra $15,000 a year can make a huge difference on your type of lifestyle in retirement. Now, another mistake many retirees make is not considering the spouse, especially a spouse who has no or much lower lifetime earnings when claiming Social Security. And even if you are in poor health, beginning benefits early can subject your surviving spouse to a much lower survivor benefit for life. So couples nearing retirement should consider joint life expectancy when making the decision around when to begin Social Security. And there's a lot more that we can dive into there. But I want to note too, I think it's good to note that the rules have changed when it comes to Social Security, especially for spouses. It's really this magical number of 1953. So for individuals born before then, they could take advantage of some of these file and suspend ideas. So if you do fall in that camp or know someone that does, they can still take advantage of some of these ideas. But for the majority and moving forward, these are no longer available. Now, we don't want to leave out special rules, right, for divorced or widowed individuals. And in a case of divorce, there actually are special rules that apply. And so I don't go into too much detail here. The difference between claiming off of a spouse versus an ex-spouse is a spouse, as if you recall, your spouse must start claiming in order for you to claim based off of their earnings. When it comes to a divorced individual, they just have to be of age. This is really Social Security's gift so that people don't have to talk to their ex-spouse and say, hey, have you started to claim yet? Because I want to, off of your earnings. And listed on this slide here are a few details on other rules and regulations in order to qualify for benefits based off of individuals who are divorced. But again, we can share these slides and happy to answer questions towards the end as well. And here are just additional details on survivor benefits in general. So once you pass away, if your widow is at their full retirement age, they can receive 100% of their survivor benefit. But this has been the story. If they claim before their full retirement age, they'll receive a reduced amount. There are also rules for individuals who are disabled and or those who are caregivers, meaning maybe if you are responsible for another individual's income in general, and or if you're taking care of a minor, there are different ways to get benefits through Social Security as well. And not to sound like a broken record, there is a good chance that benefits will be taxed. There's a whole calculation here. These are the updated income levels for 2023. So again, if you're breaking these thresholds, we listed for single filers as well as married couples filing jointly. It's just a great way to be strategic with your financial advisor. And maybe there's ways to avoid taking income in certain years and planning ahead for when you are receiving Social Security to avoid taxation there. And the last idea here is for public employees, such as school teachers, as an example, slated to receive a pension, they may face challenges when planning for retirement, particularly if they hope to include Social Security as well. So if a client works in a job that does not withhold Social Security payroll taxes, the receipt of a pension may eliminate or reduce Social Security benefits. The idea here is that you can't get both, right? You can't get a full pension and then full survivor benefits from Social Security. There will be a calculation, and in some instances, you may not receive anything from Social Security, and some, as I mentioned, you might receive a reduced amount. But again, if you fall in that camp or a spouse falls in that camp, that calculation can get a bit tricky, but working with Social Security and your advisor can definitely help address that. And this is just a great example, a couple hypothetical to further illustrate how the benefit reduction calculation for either of these scenarios. And again, I'll take a pause here on this slide. If you are in this circumstance, we're happy to have further discussions. Now, just to close us out here, I know I covered a lot. I know it's likely to have a lot of changes in the future when it comes to Social Security, just to address the trust fund depletion. But a few closing thoughts here. You know, Social Security is a critical component of an effective retirement plan, but it shouldn't be the only source of income, which is, again, great that you're all attending today because you're all a few steps ahead than everyone else that is going to just solely rely on Social Security. It's also important to understand and just make the right decisions around taking Social Security, and it can be a huge difference in reduced benefits for you and a spouse. And it's very important, as I mentioned, to work with a financial advisor in these situations because, as I mentioned, if you call Social Security, the administration, they'll be helpful, but they can't provide advice. And since every individual's PIA is different, just as an example, it's worth taking a deep dive into your customized situation. Now, with that, I want to thank you all for your time today, and I'm happy to take questions. And so I'll turn it back to you, Bill.
Grace, thank you. That was great. And I'm really happy that you addressed some of the insolvency issues because, you know, that seems to be one of the questions that our advisors are hearing over and over again, because obviously it gets a lot of attention in the media. And I will also say, having, you know, listened to or been a part of a number of these types of presentations over the years, the first thing I want to note with any questions that we might get on that is that you nor I control that. You know, that is entirely in the hands of the politicians. So anything that we say is really just based on, you know, what we hear, what we read, what we see, what we expect the provisions are coming down the pipeline or the changes that might be made. But I actually do have a question that came in specifically about that, and I think it's a very smart question to be thinking about this. And the question is, we are delaying taking our benefits for the increased amount, but it pushes closer to insolvency of the overall problem. Is that logic still reasonable? It feels counterintuitive.
Such a great question. And to answer it plainly, I'd say it does really pay to delay in that sense, meaning whether you claim earlier or you're still waiting, if they address Social Security in some capacity, no one will be grandfathered in, right? So we believe, at least at Putnam here, that if they make changes, everyone will be impacted. And still, if you wait and delay and there is a change, they'll still account for your delay. So you will benefit in that regard. It won't lock you in to a better situation, if you will, if you claim early. That's our understanding. And I would also say, too, for those of you retiring in the next 10-ish years or so, I think this is less of your issue. It might be that next generation that will be facing this. So I would kind of follow the typical rules and not worry too much about the depletion, because again, individuals are still paying into Social Security. It's just the amount that's in, you know, in their bank, if you will.
So, and I think that's a great point. And so just kind of as an example of what you just discussed, Grace, So let's say I delay and I get that 8% increase each year, but then all of a sudden the change is everybody's going to get a 10% cut across the board. I'm still getting a 10% cut of that higher amount. So it still benefited me to wait a little bit longer.
Absolutely. And I think you make a good point there too, because not just worries about the depletion, but also that major adjustment to COLA this year, right? So that's an 8.7% increase for this year. Some individuals are saying, well, should I claim early to lock that in? Well, once you reach 62, your earnings will account for that, even if you delay. So that 8.7-ish%, even if you don't claim right now, will be baked into that final number for you. So you're not missing out by waiting, even when it comes to the COLA adjustment.
And just as a reminder to all the participants, if you do want to ask a question, the only way to do that is to email cornerstonewm@lpl.com. Once again, that's cornerstonewm, no spaces there, at lpl.com. I do have a second question, Grace, and that is, does your socialsecurity.gov account include the reduction based on your pension? How can you confirm if you're impacted by maybe pension proceeds coming from another source?
Well, that is a great question. I'm going to have to follow up because I'm not in that scenario. So I don't know if I'd be able to see or not. So let me confirm, and Bill, I'll get back to you on that. And something I will note too, your own version of myssa.gov is so important to be proactive on, because again, you can make sure your income looks right over the years that you've been working. But another thing to note is the calculations that they will share with you for if you claim at 62, if you wait till 67, if you wait until 70, they do make assumptions there, right? So they assume that you work up until that age. So don't be shocked if the number you see projected is not identical to what you end up receiving, because again, of the assumptions they make. And in this circumstance too, I think if you fall in that category, it's even more important to check. So let me get back to you on how they interpret that within the website.
That sounds great. I do have a question on taxes. So, we know from, for example, distributions from our IRAs or 401k accounts, we know that we can check a box or we can designate an amount that's going to be withheld to pay for taxes. Does Social Security, when benefits are paid to an individual, does Social Security take out state and federal taxes before those distributions are sent to individuals?
I'll have to confirm that as well. The taxation, the withheld aspect is like a more interesting conversation, a little more complex conversation. So if you don't mind actually sending that my way, written out, that'd be great. And I can follow up with whoever asked that, because it does get a lot more complex.
And I'd have to think to some extent that that also that would be affected by how much the individual is earning as well, because in some cases they may not have any taxes withheld or need taxes withheld, but in some cases they're above that threshold, they would be paying state and federal taxes.
Right. So only up to a certain amount of your income is taxed to Social Security. That's one of the things that could be changed to address the depletion issue, right? We mentioned that. They could add it to 400,000 and above, right? So there could be a gap that isn't taxed. But to your point, this is why it gets complex, because there's a difference between part of your Social Security benefits that could be taxed due to your other income levels. But then there's also ways that your benefits will just be reduced because you're still working and paying taxes, right? So that's why it can get a bit complex there.
I have a question on widow benefits, and the question reads, I am planning on retiring at age 64. My husband passed away 6 years ago. If I draw his benefits first, can I switch over to mine at age 66 in 10 months, or do I have to wait until age 70?
That's such a great question. So And I can even go back to a few of those slides that talk about just survivors in general. So this slide, I think, could really help address a lot of those things. But just as a reminder, again, especially when it comes to if you have your own earnings and then you want to take advantage of the maximum amount that you would get from a survivor benefit, the benefit amount itself, if you claim, as early as age 60, the benefit amount is about 71.5% of the full benefit amount if you take it at age 60, and is based on that deceased spouse earnings. So you can choose to receive survivor benefits while letting your own benefit accrue, delayed until age 60, and the reverse too. So you can play that game in a sense. And just one of those rules as well for widowers is you must be married for at least 9 months to qualify for the benefit, something to note. But again, since it is a case-by-case basis and there's more to it than just a widow or widower, I think it's worth looking into the details on what your earnings were, what their earnings were, and the time frame of the death and the age of the individual.
So in this situation, it sounds like, so if the income you're receiving from the spousal benefit is meeting your needs, or maybe you have some other sources, the more you can prolong taking your own benefit, you're still getting that 8% increase for every year that it kind of stays in the oven and bakes.
Yeah, and vice versa, right? So whether maybe you are the lower earner, you can claim based off of your own earnings and then not claim your survivor benefits and let them accrue too until your full retirement age. So that's one of those ways that you can still almost file and suspend. And I don't want to say it's a perk per se of survivor benefits, because of course there's no win there in a sense, losing your spouse, but I think they also try to help you out in that sense.
Sure. So another question on spousal benefits. The question is, I was born in 1951. My wife was born in 1954. I delayed my benefits to age 70. My wife applied when she reached her own FRA. And it says, I thought Social Security benefits or spousal benefits would have been offered to her at the time of her application. She has only received her own benefit. Can we reapply? Can we get her benefits retroactively?
Yes, so you can definitely reapply. This is where it gets tricky, because Social Security in some instances is supposed to make the changes for you, right? We can't always trust that. So it's a good thing that you're keeping an eye on that. You can do both of those things. I don't know to what degree that they'll be able to be retroactive, but it's what you earned and what you deserve. So absolutely, that change should be fixed, but it might take action on your end. Social Security, again, is supposed to see, which benefit would be higher and what's the best option for individuals, but it ends up a lot of times falling on the individual themselves, unfortunately, to make that change.
This is maybe, and I don't know if this was maybe changed in some of the most recent legislation, but wasn't there kind of at one point like a one-time do-over to where you could actually elect to make a change and delay your benefits, but I think, didn't you have to kind of pay back any benefits you had received prior to that?
Yeah, and I think there's a 12-month rule. So if you realize the error within the year, then what you can do is, if you claim too early and you're like, oh, I locked myself into a lower amount, I wish I didn't do that. The paying back aspect is something to consider, but also I think it has to be done within 12 months of claiming. And then what you can do is let it accrue and grow, but there would be that break-even point, right, where it's worth it or not. So it is good to note that you can almost correct this situation. You're not technically really locked into that lower amount, but it can get complex when it comes to dealing with Social Security and dealing with all of that. So I think it's definitely something you shouldn't take lightly.
Hey, Grace, we have a question. If you wouldn't mind going back to that slide that you have that shows full retirement age for different age bands.
Mhm. There we
So
go.
the question was, the gentleman who wrote the question said, I was born in 1960 and the presentation shows that my retirement age is 67. He said actually that his statement that he's getting from Social Security is saying that his retirement age is 65. Would there be a reason
Interesting.
for that you can think of?
No, there must be an error. And I want to say that's not common, but so there must be an error, first of all. Second of all, there could be a few things, whether you start to claim or not. I don't know if that was the age, maybe you started to claim, maybe that wasn't communicated well enough. But this is the way, at least Social Security is interpreting it now. So definitely worth a conversation with calling my SSA and having your advisor support you on that.
Got a question, and obviously we talked about if you earn past a certain threshold, obviously you're going to then be taxed on Social Security more so at higher income levels, or if you're earning higher income levels. So if you're taking distributions from an IRA or a 401k, which those are taxed as ordinary income, is that going to be considered income? And could that potentially then put you into a situation where you're having to pay more taxes on that Social Security benefit?
Yes, and that's where this gets confusing, because taxation wise, yes, but those types of income wouldn't count for the earnings test, which would reduce benefits, right? So there's an interesting path to face there. There's a difference again in what's being taxed and what's being reduced due to earnings. So that would count for earning, or that would count for taxation levels, but it wouldn't count for the depletion in your benefits due to the earnings test.
Okay, so you could still take those distributions, and as long as you don't have a job and earning income, you should be okay with your Social Security distributions.
Right, those won't be reduced. The taxation comes in on your, and I can go to that slide as well, just the different levels. And I think it's here. See it momentarily. Again, it's just more of a conversation on the difference in if you're going to be taxed due to your income levels, and it's something to keep in mind when claiming Social Security, versus having just the amount that you're owed through Social Security be eliminated or reduced just because you're still working. So the distributions from a retirement account wouldn't qualify for that, but it would of course impact your income level, right? So that's why it might be important to be strategic. For these few years, I want to delay Social Security benefits. So maybe you want to take a larger amount from your retirement accounts during those years, build up your income there, so that when you are claiming Social Security, you're not getting as taxed or as much taxed on that. But there's some things you can't control too much.
So another reason to sit down with your financial advisor and figure out what that distribution plan is going to look like.
Exactly.
So Grace, one last question, and this has to do with widow benefits. The question is, I was married for 30 years. My husband is deceased. If I remarry, I understand I cannot receive my deceased husband's Social Security. And if I remarry and have collected my own benefit and then divorce, I can then go back and collect my deceased husband's benefit.
So this particular circumstance, since it's a bit complex, I'd want to just confirm a few things before giving an answer. What I will say is, for an individual, if they get divorced or widowed, there is a time frame. I think it's above age 60. Once you reach age 60, you can get remarried after a divorce and still have the option from what to claim. But just based on this conversation here, I think I might need to take a deeper dive into that more complex scenario before giving an answer.
Yeah, and I think, in this case, I kind of misread the last part of the question. So if the person were to start taking their own benefit, and then decided that maybe they wanted to go back and take their deceased spouse's benefit,
Okay.
can they make that change, or are they kind of locked in for, maybe the question is, how, is there a time frame in which they could make that change, or are they kind of locked into taking their own benefit?
No, so I think one of the first questions we had actually is pretty similar to this, where when it comes to survivor benefits, right, that's what we're talking about. You can be a little more strategic here, pull from one and wait for the other. So in this circumstance, absolutely, you can claim off of your own Social Security, let your survivor benefit accrue or grow. I think up until age 70, it could make the most sense. Again, delaying past 70 for anyone just doesn't make sense for the growth. But you can choose to receive survivor benefits while letting your own benefit accrue up until age 72. So there is an option to switch, and I don't think there's an exact rule for a time frame, but it just might make sense math-wise for you and logically for a certain time frame.
Well, Grace, thank you. We got some pretty complex questions that came in today.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
so I appreciate you taking those and not leaving those to me, because I know I would have failed miserably. But I want to thank you for sharing your time with us today and giving us this great information. I want to thank all of our participants who came on today and spent their time with us. And as I said, this will be recorded, or it is being recorded, I should say. It will take a few days for us to send it through our compliance department, but this will be something that you can go back and revisit, send to a friend, go back to it anytime whenever you do have any questions. But appreciate everyone's time today, and thank you very much for attending.